There's a lot of casuals out there who seem to believe that Floyd Mayweather could have knocked out Logan Paul at any time that he wanted. You've even got Bob Arum chiming in on this and saying, yeah, Mayweather could have stopped him at any time he wanted. So you're saying he could have knocked him out in the first round if he chose to, or in the second round, or in the third round, or name the round. If he decided I'm going to knock him out in this round, he could have gone ahead and done it, no problem. That's what you're saying. That is an absolute load of rubbish. I am in the boxing gym at least 3 times a week now since gyms reopened. I go to a professional gym. I see professionals sparring in that gym. I competed as an amateur myself from the age of about 12 through to my mid to late 20s. I've been around boxing the vast majority of my life. I know what I'm looking at. I know what it looks like when somebody's carrying someone in a fight. And I know what it looks like when somebody's genuinely trying to go for a knockout. I also understand the dynamics when you've got a much smaller guy fighting a much bigger guy and how difficult it can be when the bigger guy is imposing his size on you, grabbing you, wrapping you up. When people don't understand these dynamics, it's indicative of the fact that they haven't laced up a pair of gloves in their lives. This is why they don't understand, for example, during the Klitschko era, when Klitschko was wrapping people up, you'd hear people say, oh, they shouldn't let Klitschko tie them up. They should do more to stop him tying them up. When you've got a man that size, who's much bigger and physically stronger than you, as Klitschko was over most of his opponents, it is extremely difficult to get him off you. It is extremely difficult when he's got such good footwork and movement to prevent him from clinching you. This idea that it's the fault of the person getting clinched excessively and he should be able to do more is utter nonsense. You just look at, for example, Mike Tyson when he fought Bone Crusher Smith. Bone Crusher Smith was not a top heavyweight champion historically. He was a relatively poor heavyweight champion. But yet when he fought Tyson, he was able to go the distance. Smith never even came close to getting stopped in that fight. Mike Tyson knocked out better fighters than Bone Crusher Smith, but he couldn't stop Smith. Smith was about what? I want to say 15 pounds heavier than Tyson. Smith, being 6'4", just wrapped Tyson up the whole night. And Tyson wasn't able to get the shots off. And this is a guy who's a proficient pressure fighter, but yet he couldn't get the shots off in great enough volume and with enough regularity to get Smith out of there. Other people got Smith out of there, but Mike Tyson couldn't get Smith out of there because size does matter, particularly when you're going after a guy and all he's doing is wrapping you up, and he's good at clinching. Logan Paul comes from a wrestling background, so he would be good at clinching, right? You just got a bunch of casuals, never laced up a pair of gloves in their lives, who think that, oh yeah, Mayweather could have knocked him out at any time. And I'm not even saying that you have to have boxed to understand boxing. You got people like Larry Merchant, for example, who was intelligent enough and observant enough and perceptive enough to actually understand boxing to a very high level, and he'd never laced up a pair of gloves in his life. But people like that are the exception, not the rule. In most cases, people who've never laced up a pair of gloves in their lives do not understand the sport to the same degree as people who have actually boxed or at least sparred extensively. And I'm talking about real sparring, not just faffing about, actual real proper sparring. There's this idiotic, and that's what I'm going to call it, it's an idiotic notion that Mayweather somehow held Logan Paul up when he'd knocked him out on his feet. Have you actually watched the whole fight instead of these silly little clips on Instagram or whatever other social media? Watch the whole fight. At no point did Mayweather come remotely close to putting Logan Paul down, much less knocking him out. Mayweather, throughout his whole career, if you know anything about Mayweather, you would know that he often uses his forearm to create space in the pocket. He'll put the forearm on the opponent's chest, or he'll put the forearm under their chin, so on their neck. Just ask Ricky Hatton about that. So that's not holding someone up who is knocked out. That's him trying to create space on the inside and block them from clinching him. But when you're up against somebody who's so big compared to you, like a Logan Paul, who's much younger than you, who actually wrestled in high school or college or whatever, it's very difficult to be able to create space and keep that guy off you when he wants to clinch. Extremely difficult, much more difficult than when you're fighting somebody your own size. So again, bunch of casuals, don't know what they're looking at. And this other notion that Logan Paul somehow is not an athlete. He is an athlete. You might actually want to go and look up the word athlete and see what it means. You don't have to be a professional or an elite world-class athlete to be an athlete. No, you could be somebody who's athletic in high school and you're an athlete. That's why they put the prefix of professional before professional athlete to denote the fact that there are different types or different levels of athlete. Professional athlete, amateur athlete, elite athlete, average athlete, high school athlete, and so on. There isn't one type of athlete. And furthermore, there were certain people in the comment section saying, oh, a sprinter wouldn't gas out after 3 rounds like Logan Paul did. Again, you've clearly never been in a boxing gym. You clearly are not somebody who's been around boxing your whole life. Because if you were, you would have seen all kinds of different people come into boxing gyms over the years. From semi-professional football players, loads of football players, friends of mine who came into the boxing gym, who could run around on a park all day long, kicking a football. People who are good at sprinting, and you put them in a boxing gym and take them on the pads for 3 rounds and they are absolutely knackered because it's a different kind of fitness. Boxing fitness is not like running around kicking a football. It's not like sprinting for 10 seconds. It's a totally different kind of fitness. It works different muscles. It puts a different type of stress on you. You actually have to do the boxing training to get boxing stamina. Very few people can just walk in from another sport into boxing and have great stamina. Very few people. I don't care what kind of athletics they've been doing or whatever the case may be. Very few people, especially if they're going to throw real punches. If you bring somebody who's like a long distance runner and you put them on a bag and they're just throwing little pitty-patty punches, oh yeah, they can do that for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 rounds. But if they're throwing real punches to try and damage somebody, most of them don't have the stamina to do that in boxing. I'm telling you, I've seen it my whole life because it's a very different type of stamina that you build up in boxing. That's why you've got a guy like an Andy Ruiz, who's not half the athlete, there's that word again, that Anthony Joshua is. But look at his stamina compared to AJ's. So again, you got a bunch of people who don't know what on earth they're talking about, who haven't laced up a pair of gloves in their lives, coming saying, oh, you stop talking rubbish, Hat Man. He clearly, carried Logan Paul in the fight and he could have stopped him anytime he wanted. There was clearly a gentleman's agreement. No, you're clearly an idiot. You're clearly a casual and you've never laced up a pair of gloves in your life. Probably never even been into a boxing gym in your life. You don't know what you're talking about. Mayweather is a 44-year-old man. He's never fought anybody the size of Logan Paul before, young enough to be his son. Logan Paul, a YouTuber, yes, but he's an athlete. It's not like he's some fat slob who's never competed in any sport in his life, much less boxed, who doesn't have any kind of athletic ability at all. No, Logan Paul comes from a wrestling background and what have you. He's competed in that sport, albeit 9 years ago. Look at the shape he's in. He's still kept himself in tremendous shape. He's had a couple of white collar fights basically in boxing. And he's had a level of training with all the sparring and what have you that the average YouTuber and the average Joe is not going to have, are they? Because he's a millionaire, he can actually have access to a level of training that most people wouldn't have access to. So that's who Mayweather was in against. And look, Mayweather won the fight. It was an exhibition. There was no judging or anything. But if you want to score the rounds, obviously Mayweather won. Logan Paul maybe won, 1 or 2 rounds? 2 at best. After that, it was all Floyd Mayweather. And Mayweather tried to knock him out. It was clear that Mayweather tried to knock him out. Because Logan Paul tried to knock Mayweather out in the first round. When he flurried, he was throwing all these big shots. He really went for it. And Mayweather, after that, wanted to pay him back and get him out of there, but the guy was just too big. There comes a point, and look, Mayweather was superior in there, but there comes a point when the physicality of your opponent, particularly if he just wants to survive and he's grabbing you all the time, and you're 44 years of age, and you're not used to fighting somebody this big. The distance Mayweather also struggled with. The timing, because he was swinging and missing. He's not used to fighting someone that tall with such long arms. That's why he was swinging and missing. Mayweather has never been primarily a pressure fighter. That's not his style. This is not a Mike Tyson. This is not a Joe Frazier. This is not a Gennady Golovkin. It's not a Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. Right? This is not a guy who is an expert at pressure fighting. If you'd seen a fighter who is an expert at pressure fighting in there against Logan Paul, it would have been a very different type of fight. If you'd seen someone in there who was proficient at stalking taller opponents and chopping them down, then maybe Logan Paul would have got stopped. But Mayweather's never been that kind of guy. People mentioning taller opponents he's fought, like Diego Corrales was stick thin and he had short arms, shorter arms than Floyd had. Facts. They don't talk to me if you don't know about boxing. Don't do that. I will embarrass you. You don't know about boxing. Mayweather had longer arms than Diego Corrales, and furthermore, Diego Corrales, and I'm not talking about reach, I'm talking about arm length. Diego Corrales never fought like a tall guy. Diego Corrales was one of these tall fighters who would fight like a smaller guy. In fact, he would usually fight in a typical pressure fighting style, like Antonio Margarito, where he would give up his height and come at you, not try and keep things long and keep you on the outside. That wasn't Diego Corrales' style. So, again, a bunch of people talking rubbish. So I'm going to school you here. I'm going to school you. Floyd Mayweather would have loved to have got Logan Paul out of there. He couldn't do it because he's 44 years of age and the guy was just too big and the guy was fighting just to survive after 2 rounds. If Logan Paul had actually tried to engage Mayweather more in the fight, particularly when Paul was tired, he probably, good chance he could have got stopped. If Mayweather had put enough punches together, he might have been able to get Paul out of there. But Paul wasn't giving him enough opportunities. He was wrapping him up all the time, leaning on him, pushing him back, and Mayweather just wasn't strong enough to keep somebody that size off of him. It's just that simple. This idea that a guy like Mayweather, as egotistical as he is, when someone like Logan Paul comes in and tries to knock him out, which he clearly tried to do in that first round, when he got him in the corner, he was throwing everything into those shots. Logan Paul, that is. Mayweather wouldn't try to pay that back and at least get a knockdown. Like, you don't know Floyd Mayweather if you think he's going to take something like that. You don't know Floyd Mayweather if you think that he didn't understand people would criticize him if he took Logan Paul if Logan Paul took him the distance. He knew there would be criticism. So he was trying to get him out of there, or at least get a knockdown. At least. Maybe if Logan Paul had been down and was seriously hurt, maybe at that point Floyd would have pulled back and maybe carried him for a little bit. But it never got to that stage. Logan Paul was never hurt in the fight. So, anyway, some people don't like when I address the idiots. And, I don't often address them, but certain times you need to put them in their place. Because there's far too much idiocy in the world, as evidenced by the amount of nonsensical, ridiculous, silly comments on my Logan Paul Mayweather video. And by the way, all these people saying, why are you even making a video about this? Why are you watching? That's the thing. What kind of weirdo starts complaining about the video? Oh, I don't like your videos and this. Why are you here then? You see, when I don't like a particular channel for whatever reason, you know what I do? I don't watch them. That's as simple as that. I don't turn up in the comment section of all their videos saying, oh, I don't like this guy. That's weirdo business. Who does that? As they say in America, where they do that at? Like, what are you doing? If you don't like me, don't watch. One thing you're not going to do is come to my channel and tell me how to run it. That's what you're not going to do. Yeah? You're not going to come here and say, stop talking about this. Don't talk about that. Don't do that. Anyone I catch coming out their mouth like that is instantly blocked. If you want to come to my channel and disagree respectfully, absolutely fine. But anybody coming here saying, don't say this, don't say that, you will get instantly blocked. It's just that simple. You don't come to my channel and tell me how to run it. If you think you can do a better job, start your own channel and run it how you like. Yeah? Don't come to my channel telling me how to run mine. Anyway, I'm out.